Okay, here's another video where annotated Karpov plays black in the caro kann and wins. The green square on B1 is highlighted because I'm actually, for my own training purposes, nothing to do with this video, highlighting how that knight moves during the game and how the pieces that capture the knight and capture the capture of the knight, how they move throughout the board throughout the game, but not relevant for this video. And I'll move speedily through the moves. I mean, pause where you want to dwell, but this commentary is aimed very much at the weaker player, I have to say, so I won't focus on the complicated points. So it's the caro kann, as I say, and often in games I've been following with Karpov, we've achieved this pattern. This knight on f6 and knight on d7 is a point that I'll raise later where knights support each other, which can be good or bad. There is a downside to it in certain other positions, but not in this one at the moment. Okay, so white chooses not to trade and attacks the f7 pawn, and black intervenes to d6. Knight gets kicked back. Knight's kicked back to a square on f3, so the other knight is hemmed in temporarily. Okay, so here the black's offering a trade. Weak players might often think mentally, so I've got two choices. I can either trade or not trade, but actually there's couple more things to think about. An in-between move, for example, you could look at queen b5 check. You could look at checks, which are forcing moves, and you can also look at interposing pieces, so that the trade doesn't apply, by which, for example, we have in this game where he moves the knight in between the two bishops. So for the weaker player, I would say, of course, apply certain principles and proverbs to play, night on the rim is dim and so on, but don't let it stop you looking at really important candidate moves. I think looking at all checks before you play your move, checks for you and your opponent, and all knight moves, just do it routinely. That's my advice, and I think that was advised by a guy called Purdy, who's I think an excellent writer of books on chess. Okay, moving on. Now this knight and knight support, knight on f3 and knight on e5. I think it was in a book called Bishop versus Knight by Steve Mayer, where he pointed out that sometimes you get a really strong knight, but the trouble is that it requires another knight to be completely passive to support it. Now we haven't quite got that here, but often a knight somewhere as good as e5, especially if it's an outpost knight, will be, to some extent, you think, worth propping up, and players often have a knight supporting it, but that knight then becomes dead for the rest of the game. So just one thing to bear in mind about this relationship of knight supporting knight. Okay, this game is going to become quite complicated. I mean, this was from the Amber blindfold rapid game in 1994. I'm not sure whether it was blindfold or rapid, but either way it's impressive, the quality of this game, because it gets complicated, particularly in a minute here. Knight's attacking the queen, so here's a classic instance of weaker players thinking, God, I've got to move the queen, but no. Instead, black temporarily pins the knight, you would think, because there's a multiple pin going on here. Now black's bishop is theoretically pinned by the rook. However, black can afford to take the knight because it's attacking the queen. Queen takes, so all we've exchanged a couple of the minor pieces so far. Now again, black's queen is under attack, and again he sees no need to move it, in the sense that instead of which he attacks white's queen. So both queens are on prise, and black will would be better off if after rook takes queen, knight takes queen. So the queen retreats, and you can see a position here with queen on f1 and knight on f4, and I'm going to mention this. It applies to queens, but mainly in regard to bishops. This relationship of a bishop, 2 squares, and then a knight. I'll mention it in a minute, later in the game, I think. Okay. So again, all sorts of hocus pocus. I mean, the number of times this queen's been on prise, but he hasn't moved it out of the way. Instead, he comes up with something else. Now we're going to get a complete imbalance in the position because white takes black's queen. Black gets other material, but I find these positions very difficult to judge who's winning, who's losing. White's got a rook and a bishop. Sorry, a rook and a knight, and 3 pawns in effect for the queen. Okay. So we've now got opposite coloured bishops, which if it came down to it in the ending, which it will do, can be drawish. So if you're up with opposite coloured bishops, try and keep those pawns on, try and keep other pieces on perhaps. Okay. Here's an interesting little conundrum, point. Often it's good when you've got one bishop to have your queen on the other colour, just to create harmony so you're not weak on one colour complex. So the queen is taking care of the black squares at the moment, or trying to. Again, these general rules, they're not, you have to take them to some extent with a pinch of salt, but they're there to help. Rooks come off, and black's got a passed pawn that white needs to take care of pronto, which it does. There we go. Now, black makes a sort of clever little move here, returning the minor material for the queen. What happens is knight takes pawn, king takes knight, rook checks, and the bishop is discovering an attack on the queen. Pawn takes rook, and bishop takes queen. So black goes into the ending, opposite coloured bishops, but 2 pawns up. White negates a pawn. Often if you're losing, it's good to get rid of the pawns. Conversely, if you're losing, it's often good to keep hold of the pieces, not trade pieces. Okay, and then there's a lot of jewelry pokery going on here, and I'm sure if you watched it, it'd be very instructive as to how to play an ending with opposite coloured bishops. We haven't quite got time for that, but there is one point. There's 2 more points I want to mention if I can get them in. Let's just run through the moves. Okay, so we get the pawn. I mean, Fritz says that it's this move here. Sorry, that move there. King f4 is a bad mistake. White was losing beforehand, but now is losing terribly. Bishop takes h4. Rather than just take back, black can afford to try and lull the king away. And now it's a question of just running this pawn, and that king can't really get close. The pawn controls the white squares and the bishop controls the black squares. And now the bishop can't get close, it's only a matter of time before that pawn will queen. There's one thing I didn't mention which I meant to, which was this concept of bishop and knight being 2 squares away. I wonder if I can get to something where that happens. Let's pretend this fellow was a bishop. Where that queen with a green square is a bishop. Particularly if you're playing